All right, team. So listen, let's jump into it here because of the time constraint that we have here. So this is going to be part of the AZ 500 here, and we're going to talk about managing security controls for identity and access here. Okay, and so I want you all to think about this. We're gonna work off of a fictitious company called Contoso here. And so Contoso, think of this as being a multinational corporation. They operate in the finance and the pharmaceutical and the retail industry here. And part of our job is to make sure that we protect those identities out there. And so that's what we're going to talk about here during the conversation here. I would love if y'all have questions, make sure you post those in the chat window. I do have one of my other colleagues on here, Olu. Olu is also a technical trainer here. And so Olu will be able to also fill in some of the questions in the chat window, or you can raise your hand if you want to and come off of mute, however you want to do it. If you want to turn on your camera, feel free to do that also as well. I love to see your faces, okay? And so it's really about managing identities, okay? Identities, as relates to dealing with Azure, they can come from different locations, okay? And what I mean by that is you have different identities such as the ones here, okay? These are the different types of users that you could have in your tenant. Now, some of y'all might not know what a tenant is. A tenant is just simply when you have an agreement with Microsoft. It could be a 1 or 3 year agreement with Microsoft, and you're leasing these services. And so this is my tenant here. The name of my tenant is Contoso, right up here, okay? And so inside of Contoso up here, you see, I have my users and my groups, as well as my external identities here, and my roles and my administrators here as well, okay? So we're going to be working within this demo environment. We're also going to be actually doing some whiteboarding and just having a conversation about this also as well. So whenever I mention the word tenant or directory, I'm simply saying this is the agreement that you have with Microsoft. This is your instance of Microsoft Entra ID. It's just simply an instance for your organization. And this is it right here. Okay, so this is Microsoft Entra ID. The name of it is Contoso for my tenant here. This is where I manage the users, the groups, and other things here also as well. But we're going to focus on users and groups here, okay? So with that said here, okay, these are the different types of users that you can work with here, okay? Now you have to think about this. As you can see on the screen, you have internal users and you also have external users here. But the goal here is to make sure that it doesn't matter if they are coming in from external, meaning they could be coming in from a different organization. They could be coming in, from the internet. It could be social media accounts, as an example. They are considered guests. The internal users are the ones that are created inside of your tenant, in our case, Contoso, okay? So you think of those internal members as being full-time employees for the organization, okay? Sometimes you have what we call internal guests. Internal guests, maybe you have business with another organization. That would be business to business. So let's say, for example, if me and Curry, I had my Contoso tenant, Curry had a different tenant. Let's say perhaps maybe Fabricam, okay? But we do business together. That means that Curry needs to have access to resources in my tenant, Contoso. So I can grant his users access, even though they are guest users. And we do that with a business-to-business collaboration. So whenever you see the acronym B2B, that's just simply means business to business, okay? Now, how many of y'all on social media? Give me a show of hands. How many, give me a thumbs up or a show of hand if you're on social media there. Okay, yeah, so I see the majority of y'all are there. And so guess what? I have the ability to invite you into my tenant also as a guest user also, okay? But because we're talking about security, I have to make sure I do this the correct way, okay? Because when I give you access to my resources in the tenant, I have to make sure that I'm monitoring where you go, okay? I'm making sure that I'm giving you the appropriate roles that you need to in order to perform whatever task you need to perform, as an example there, okay? But the goal is that I'm controlling where you go when you get access to these resources in my tenant. And then I'm sitting in the background, I'm going to monitor what you do, okay? And so those are the things we're going to talk about here, okay? In here, okay? Now, the first thing you need to make sure, well, how do you create a user? How do you create a group? That's the first step in the process, okay? And so in my Microsoft Entra ID, this is just simply a service right there, okay? This is what we will call your identity provider, okay? This is Microsoft version of identity provider. There are also third-party identity providers out there, such as Okta, and you have others out there also, okay? But think of identity provider as just simply an identity service for you to be able to manage your users, your groups, your external identities, assign roles to those identities, and some of these other options in here also, okay? So when I need to create users, for example, now I have a few created here, but this is where I would do it here. Remember, I said you have internal users, you have external users. This is where we need to make that decision. One of the locations here. If I create the new user, that means they are already part of my organization, Contoso. These could perhaps be full-time employees for Contoso, as an example there. I saw a lot of hands go up when I mentioned about social media and also business to business and B2C, which is business to consumer. Those would be external users there, but they need to collaborate with my organization, Contoso. So this is a decision point you need to make. Now I want to show you this here. When I create users, perhaps full-time users in Contoso, as an example here, well, it's not that difficult to do, okay? I just need to assign them a username, and then I associate that username with the UPN, which is the user principal name. And I make it user-friendly, so I give a display name there, okay? And we can generate the passwords and things of that nature. The properties. This is where, you populate the attributes, the first name, the last name, okay? The job title, the company, all of these details here. Now I'm showing you this for a reason, okay? I'm showing you this is because I can control these guest users the same way when I give them access, okay? Now, down here, you're going to notice the assignment. This is where I would add the users to the groups and the roles. This is one of the important points you need to make sure you understand here. These are the roles that you can perform various tasks with when you're working inside of Contoso, as an example. And so let's say, because we are dealing with security, as an example here. So let's say perhaps security administrators here. So maybe you need to be a security administrator for Contoso, okay? Well, you see, I will assign this role to you. By assigning you this role, security administrator, you're going to have the ability to read the security information, the reports. You can manage the configuration in Microsoft Entra ID as well as in Office 365. So you have a lot of power there, okay? And there are other security roles that you also see here as well. So, so if I don't perhaps want you to be a security, let's go back and pop that in there again here. So perhaps I want you to play some role as it relates to security, but maybe not a security administrator. Maybe I just want you to be able to create and manage security events. If that's the case, I can make you a security operator or simply a reader. A reader would be someone who you don't want making changes. You just simply want them to be able to read the reports and the information. So they have the same view as the security administrator. They just can't make any changes at all. Okay. So you can assign those roles to your users there, and then you would simply create it. Now, when you create these different roles, such as, let's pick Lynn as an example here. Okay. So now Lynn is a individual that I created inside of my Contoso tenant because Lynn is a full-time employee. Okay. Now, I could perhaps maybe, Lynn decide to, she retired from Contoso, but she becomes a consultant. Well, I could convert Lynn to an external user if I choose to do that. Okay. I would just simply come here and I would send an invitation to Lynn. Okay. Once I send that invitation over there to Lynn, well, guess what? She will be invited to my Contoso tenant at that point. Okay. Now, because this is my organization, Contoso, and I'm responsible for the security here, I want to make sure that whenever I'm dealing with my guest users, my external users, I want to control what they can do, what they can see, and where they can go. Okay. But you see the difference here. I do not have to create a profile for my external user. I just simply need to have that IP address or their email address there. Okay. So I would say, well, Courtney, give me your email address. Okay. So that I can send you an invitation. When I send the invitation to Curry as an example, well, guess what? Curry's going to receive that in his inbox, in his email, and he will accept the invitation. Okay. That's going to make Curry part of my Contoso tenant. Now, just like I was able to modify the properties for my full-time employees, was guess what? I have the same capability here. Okay. I can set the title for Curry, even though he's not part of my organization, put in his company name. But you see, I can also assign Curry to groups as well as roles, just like I can do for a full-time employee. My point is that there's no difference other than you have a set of users that are part of your organization. You have a different set that are invited to your tenant. You're going to control them the same way. You're going to decide where they go, what they can do, what they can see there. Okay? Any questions before we go to the next step in this process? Any questions at all?
Okay. No, none for me.
Okay. Okay. Pretty straightforward, right? And so this is how we bring the users in. Yes. Go right ahead, Nicholas. I see your hand up there.
Yes. Good morning.
Nicholas, if you could come a little closer to your mic, you're a little. I can't hear you.
Now?
Yes. Go right ahead, Nicholas.
Okay. Great. Yeah. So I was asking us is the dashboard option different for persons who are on the student account, because I'm on it, I'm on Intra ID, but I am not seeing the option to like create a user. So I wanted to know if the options would be different for a student versus admin.
Great question. And the answer is yes. Here's the thing. When you log into your tenant, remember, that's the purpose of assigning those roles that we talked about earlier. You're only going to see what you have that access to. So if you don't have the ability to see other users or to be able to make changes, that means you don't have the appropriate role to do that. Okay? So that's the reason why you probably don't see everything that you see on my screen. I'm a global administrator in this tenant, so I have full access to everything in this tenant. Whereas when you log in, you might only have access to see certain things because the administrator has to, when they've set it up and configured, so that when you do log in, you only see certain things in your dashboard there. Okay? Yes. Another question, please go right ahead for me.
So in our case, as university students, we're just guests. We're a form of guest.
Yeah, more than likely. It depends on how the administrator. Normally, they keep the actual your professors and your executives separate from the students. Okay, and so a lot of organizations set up the students as guest users there, whereas with your professors and your administrators, they are considered full-time employees because when you graduate, you're going to move on, right? They're going to still be there. So they're considered full-time employees. You would be considered more or less a guest user. Okay? That's that answer for you. Okay, fantastic. Okay, great questions there. Okay, but remember, even though you are a guest user, I can assign you the same roles that I do your administrators and your executives and your instructors and your as well there. So I can certainly do that. Courtney, I see your hand up. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, don't want to distract you. I wanted to know, did they not provide like a demo tenant to you guys? Separate and apart from just access as guest users or just students in your current tenant?
Do anyone know?
So a demo tenant more like of like a trial tenant that you can be the admin. So
Yeah.
as being the admin, that you can apply policies and you can create new users.
Yeah,
Just as what Ralph mentioned earlier.
yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Maybe I haven't checked entirely on my end,
Mhm.
but I'm not really aware of it.
Yeah,
Maybe in a post session, one of the students could share the screen and we try to figure that
yeah.
out.
Now, Nicholas, are you a student or are you part of the organization itself there, the university?
Yeah, I'm a student, final year
Okay,
student.
yeah. So students, you more likely you're not going to see what you see on my screen here. This is for the administrator. The administrator, you would be one of these users here, perhaps probably
Okay.
guest user here, because there's no need for you to manage this. You just need to get access to the resources that I assign to you. That's what
Okay.
the administrator is doing for you. When you log in, they're going to make sure you have access to whatever resources that you need to have access to. This is for whoever's going to be administering these different users for the organization.
Okay. Noted.
Mhm, mhm. Okay. Now you're going to notice, remember I said, once I make you part of my tenant, Contoso, I'm going to control where you can go, what you can do, what you can see. Okay. Because I can look at the sign-in logs as an example here. Okay. And so you notice here, the administrator, for example, if you are logging on, for example, Nicholas, to the Azure portal, well, they can see that here. Okay. Everything in Azure is time stamped. Okay. Now, this is grayed out for security reasons because I teach a lot of different a lot of different premier customers that we have at Microsoft. And so for security reasons, we have to gray out certain things. So that's the reason why it's grayed out there. But you would be able to see the request ID and the correlation ID if it wasn't grayed out. But you see, this is part of what we call identity governance. It doesn't matter if you're a full-time employee at the university or a guest user. I can see everything going on with that individual. Okay. I noticed, for example, this particular user here, they are using multi-factor authentication. That's a second layer of security. if your password becomes compromised, well, guess what? I will not be able to log on with your user identity because you still need that second factor of authentication, multi-factor authentication there. And so this particular user here is using multi-factor authentication as a second layer of authentication. In the event if their password becomes compromised, it's okay because you still won't be able to log in because I'm going to receive a code. I'm going to have to put in a code from my phone here. Okay. Whoever's compromised your password don't have your phone, hopefully, so they still can't get into Contoso because they don't have the ability to do that there. Okay. But with the sign-in logs, I can look at all of the troubleshooting. It's going to give me the ability to launch the diagnostics tool so that I can, troubleshoot to figure out what's going on here. So I have the ability to do that. Now, in addition, it's going to show the location. Okay. So this particular user is logging on from Atlanta, Georgia. Okay. And it shows the IP address of that user, and it shows the secure address for the global secure access here. And so in addition to that, it's going to tell me the operating system, what browser, okay, is the machine registered in Entra ID. And in this case, it's registered, okay? It's going to show me the authentication details here as well. And so once again, it doesn't matter if I'm a full-time employee working at the university or a student. The administrator can monitor all of these details here. Okay, and we're going to talk about conditional access here coming up in a moment. But I want to make sure any questions about the sign-in logs here. This is where as you can see, this is where I'm tracking every single thing from the user, that user's device, where they're located, how they're authenticating, and what conditions do they have here. Okay. And so you see some of these users, they've logged on to Microsoft Office 365 portal. I've logged on to Office 365. That would be CLI, Azure CLI up here. And you see, it monitors everything, even when it was a failure here. So if I were to click on this particular sign-in detail, well, you see, it shows the location, but it shows this particular user tried to log on using second layer of authentication, multi-factor, but access has been blocked by a conditional access policy. That's the purpose of a conditional access policy. If you don't meet the requirements that I'm looking for, I'm not going to give you access. Okay? And this is what it's doing. It's telling me that this particular user was trying to log in, but they did not meet the conditions in the policy here. Okay? And so I could troubleshoot that if I want to up here. I could just simply launch the sign-in diagnostics log here. Okay? And it would run. Okay? And as it's running here, behind the scenes, you see, it's going to give me the results as to what's going on with this user. Okay? So this is the user, admin, okay, was trying to sign in to the Microsoft App Access panel, and access was blocked by a conditional access policy. When I scroll down further, well, you see, it shows me the users and the groups and the roles that user is assigned to. So remember, when we first started the conversation, we was able to add the user to groups, to different roles there. So it's going to show that information. It shows the network and the location here, okay? And it shows the block access here. And I could go to the troubleshooting guide, or I can edit the conditional access policy. Because So if I go to the condition access policy here, okay, these are my condition access policies. And so that particular user is not meeting these requirements here. Maybe multi-factor authentication for partners and vendors. Remember those guest users. I could set up a condition access policy, and it would show that if you're a guest user trying to get access, and if you don't use multi-factor authentication, I'm going to block you from getting access to my resources in my tenant. Or if you're added to this condition access policy, then I'm going to allow you access at that point. Okay? And these are some other condition access policies here. Now you notice I could set up different conditional access policies based upon name location. That's an example here. Okay? So I could set up a policy right here based off of location. And so I can pick and choose which locations around the world you need to be a part of in order for you to get access to my tenant. If I don't place a check mark in that box, that means you're not going to get access. This would be a name location conditional access policy. Okay? I would just simply have to put a check mark in these boxes, and whatever boxes I select, then you have to be in that region of the world to get access. Okay? You have to make sure whatever terms and conditions that I set, this is for the organization to protect themselves here. So like your university, for example, as a student, when you first log into the tenant, you have to meet these whatever terms that they specify. And I'm sure you all have seen this when you first started at the university here. It just simply could be a PDF file that's uploaded with the terms and conditions before I give you access to my tenant here. Okay? And so you have to meet these conditions here. If you don't, you're not going to get access. Okay? So you have a lot of different conditions here, as you can see. Now, when it comes to, let's go back to the sign-in logs here. Okay? Same as what we was looking at earlier here. You can export this out. You can change it here if you need to. But where do you manage this from? I'm going to show you. We go to identity governance here. Okay? Let's go first to here. Okay? And if we go to our security, and if we go to conditional access or identity protection here. Okay? And you notice you see other options down here as well. So if I go to identity protections, because today is all about protecting these identities. And I'm going to go back to the same place. I'm just going to jump over to this tenant because I have more resources over here. Okay, so bear with me. I'm going back to the same place. I have more users over here. So if I come over here, same place, you see. This is where I track. I don't care if you are an external user, you know, it could be social media account or guest user, business to business, or a full-time employee. I'm monitoring. I am monitoring every single user identity here. Okay. The identity protection dashboard is there to help you to protect these identities. Identities is the new control plane now. This is where these bad actors are trying to get into the environment. They're trying to penetrate, you know, with these identities here. So we have to make sure we protect these identities here. And we can keep track of all of this from the identity protection dashboard here. Okay. So you see, I have over 2,000 users. I blocked over 2,000 attacks there. Okay. So if I want to look at some of these attacks here, these are what we would call risk detections here. Okay. And so Once again, everything in Azure is time stamped. Okay, so let's look at the first one here. This particular risk detection detail is telling me, okay, this particular event here was remediated. Okay, the user passed the multi-factor authentication, so they met the condition that I set there because they were accessing using a valid account there. Okay, and so it tells you all of this detailed information here. The user logging on from Linden here. Okay, they're using, these different browsers as it shows here. Okay. Now, when I go to this is the user risk report here. Okay, and so when I click there, when it comes up, you see it's going to give me more information. Now, how many of y'all are familiar with Copilot? Are you all using Copilot? Give me a show of hands or thumbs up. Mm-hmm. Okay. Okay, I see y'all are using it. Now, y'all are probably using the Copilot for the browser, right? This Copilot here, this is going to give you a summary so you don't have to read through all of this information. So this, if you're going to be an analyst or security analyst, okay, this is beneficial for that security analyst. Because think about it, if I'm managing, these identities, and I could be responsible for managing hundreds of identities, thousands of identities. I need something to help me. Copilot would do that. I could generate a summary. Okay, so once I click on generate, and hopefully this is going to work up here. I don't see anything coming up. This is a demo environment that I don't have. I'm not a global administrator over here in this environment. So it doesn't look like it's going to bring it up here. But let me explain it to you here. Okay. Once I click on generate, it's going to generate a Copilot summary for me. So instead of me having to comb through all of this information here, all of this information here, it's going to summarize it for me. Okay. Now I see it's trying to do this in the background. And I don't know why it's slow. Some other trainers might be working in it there. But it would generate, that for me, that summary for me there, really quick, within seconds. So I don't have to comb through all of this information here. Okay. And once I read through that information, as the security administrator, I have the ability to decide on whether or not, if I need to confirm this user as being compromised or safe, or maybe just simply dismiss this user as being a risk user to my tenant, or I could simply block the user here. Okay, so that's part of your identity protection there, to give you that capability there. Now, if we come back to the dashboard here, okay, that's going to show you all of the various attacks. So if I click here again, let's take a look at one that actually have not been remediated. Let's see if I can find one here. Okay, that was dismissed. Remediate here. So what it means when it says remediate, the administrator was able to review this information and they was able to remediate, meaning they decide that this user was not going to be a threat to be able to authenticate and log in to the resources that they need to get access to. Okay. Dismiss means that simply, well, right here, when I click here, you see, dealing with Microsoft Entra ID protection. Okay, the attack, this was a brute force attack. So this was a password spray attack, meaning they were trying to figure out the password for this particular user. So this is a high level risk. Okay. And so you see, this is the location. Amsterdam. They was trying to do this from here. Okay. And so when we look at this report here, well, you see, we can look at the recent risk sign-ins for this particular user. When it comes up here, we didn't find any. Let's see if it can detect anything. Yeah, it's not bringing back anything. But let me explain it to you. The user, this particular user here. Okay, remember, these are users that we create, either guest users as part of our tenant. Remember I said earlier, this is how I track how this user is going to move around inside of my tenant. Okay, so let's look at the sign-in log here for that user. Okay, and so you see, they were trying to log into the security copilot portal. It failed. Okay, and so they was using multi-factor authentication. Okay, the session expired or was invalid due to the sign-in frequency. So remember, when we were talking about that brute force attack back underneath the identity protection for this user, apparently they were trying to get into the Copilot location, the portal there. And you see, the session expired due to the number of sign-in frequencies. All of this is running behind the scenes identity protection. It uses machine learning and artificial intelligence in the background. Whenever it see any sort of activity that could be, a threat to the organization, it's going to go to work. It's going to start raising red flags and saying, hey, wait a minute. This user is trying to log on multiple times. Maybe you fat fingered your password, or maybe your account has been compromised there. We're going to raise it here, and we're going to start monitoring this account really close. That's the reason why when you look at your identity protection, it's going to report it here so that you can go and look at this. Now, it's going to block it because you have conditional access policy in place, okay? So you don't have to do anything when you set your conditions. When you set your conditions, then this process is going to be automate itself. So it's not like you're going to have to go in here and manually do a lot of work. No, okay? The only thing you're going to have to do initially is set up your conditional access policies. You set up your user risk policy. You set up your sign-in risk policy. You're going to do that from here, okay? If I want to assign user risk policies, well, I can decide on which users or groups I want to make part of this risk policy. Now, I do have the ability to exclude. So even if I were to, specify maybe a particular group, let's say, for example, your professors, maybe they have a group. All of your professors at your university is assigned to that group, but we don't want students assigned to that group, okay? But let's say maybe a student, maybe they hack into the environment, okay? They're trying to get into this group where these, professors are part of, okay? Well, you can watch that. You can monitor that because you're setting up a user risk policy. And so you decide on which group, and you can exclude if you want to, and then you set the risk level. Is it going to be high, medium, above, or low? Okay? You have to make that decision. Then you create the policy for the user risk policy here. Okay? Now, you don't have to enforce it right away. Okay? And you decide on the controls here. Do you want to block or do you want to give them access? Now, if I decide to give you access, I might force you to change your password if I put a check mark in that box there. So that's another layer of security for user risk policy there. Okay? I know we got about 5 minutes left, and we might go over a couple minutes if it's okay with you guys, because we got started late. Let's look at the sign-in risk policy. So that was the user risk policy. Now this is the sign in. You're trying to actually authenticate and get into the environment here. The user risk policy, you're already in the environment. Now you're trying to get to different resources there. But before you even get to that point, I can set up a sign-in risk policy and do the same thing. I can add the users or the groups. I set the risk level. Is it going to be high, medium, above, low, and above? Then I set the controls. But these controls are going to look a little different. Because remember, this is a sign-in risk policy. So perhaps if you're a guest user, I'm going to grant you access, but it's going to require you to use multi-factor authentication if I allow access and put a check mark here. Or I can simply block you. Okay? So this is how you manage these identities up here. With the user risk policy, you have your condition access policies, but I want to stop just for a moment to see if there's any questions for me. Okay. Now, once you set those policies, this is where you can view those reports. So you can look at the risk users, the risk sign-ins, the risk detections right here. Okay. But you got to set your policies up first. And so once I go to perhaps risk sign-ins, because remember, you're trying to get into the environment here. Okay. I've set the policy up here. Sign-in risk policy. Now I'm sitting back and I'm looking at the reporting. Okay, so all of these are sign-in, risk sign-ins here. Okay, and you see people are trying to sign in from different parts of the world here. Okay, and it shows what's at risk and what's been confirmed as being compromised as an example here. So if I were to click here on Lee as an example, Lee's account has been compromised. Okay, and it's going to show me the activity. This is the IP address. Okay, this is the location. And it was a failure. The user account is disabled. So they wasn't able to get in because the user account was disabled. So apparently the bad actor was going through and they was trying to look at these the accounts that you had disabled, and they were trying to maybe perhaps enable that account so that they could get access there. But it was blocked. And so it shows all of the basic information, the device that they were on, the risk information, which is here. Okay. This was the Microsoft 365 admin dismissed the detection there. And they did it using identity protection. Okay. And it shows the date, the time, and the IP address of the individual who was trying to compromise this particular identity. Okay. Here. And so the multi-factor here, it talks about that, the condition access policies. So this particular user have all of these different condition access policies associated with this particular account here. Now, they're not applied or they're disabled because the user account has been disabled. Okay? And so that will be part of the risk sign-ins there. Now, when we look at the risk users report up here, okay, you see, it's going to show me obviously a different report. And if I go back to Lee here, well, it's confirming that that account was compromised and it's high level. Okay. Lee works in finance department. Okay. So apparently they could have gotten access to, finance data there, which is critical data. And it shows the recent sign-ins, risk sign-ins here. Okay. So it's going to tell me, you see, look how many different times this user account was either confirmed as being compromised, or was at risk. Okay? It tracks all of this because it's using artificial intelligence and machine learning behind the scenes when you set up your policy. Okay? And I don't know why the Copilot, it looks like it's trying to generate the report because this is a lot of information. And so, you know, in the real production environment, you will be able to get a quick summary of everything that's going on with this particular user account. Or it could be for multiple accounts. Okay? So you see, this time it brought it back. So it gives me a good summary because I don't have time to read through all of this. So it's telling me that Lee has 3 recent risk activities. 2 of those were high, 1 was medium. Okay? Anonymous IP address, impossible travel. What that means is that this user, Lee, could have been here in, let's say Lee was in Jamaica, but this bad actor is maybe in Denmark or a different location. That would be called impossible travel. Lee cannot be in Jamaica and Denmark at the same time. It's impossible for him to be in 2 places at the same time. That's why it shows as being impossible travel there. And it shows that it's an anonymous IP address because the bad actors tried to hide their IP address there. And so it tells you that the impossible travel identifies user activity originating from a geographical location within a short period of time, as I mentioned. I can't be here in Atlanta, in Jamaica. I can't log in here in Atlanta, then 2 minutes later log in Jamaica. I can't be at 2 places at the same time there. Okay? That would be impossible travel. And it gives you details about the risk sign-ins, all of the various events in the locations here. Okay? And it tells you, okay, what do you want to do? You want to ensure that the user is in scope of these risks based on your condition access policies. Well, you create a sign-in risk-based policy, as what we talked about over here. Or you can create a user risk policy there. Okay? And it gives you the documentation behind that as well. Okay? And the last thing I want to show you, even though we're talking about identities, well, remember the user are logging on with some type of device. Okay? So it tracks the workload identity also here as well. And you can set a condition to block that device as well, if you need to. Okay? And all of your alerts, you know, obviously you want the appropriate people to be alerted, you know, and so you can send those alerts to their appropriate locations there. Okay? And you get a weekly digest, so you can keep track of what's going on. Okay? So you can get a weekly report, so you can report on this as well. Okay? Questions? Before I went over 5 minutes, but just want to pause for a moment to see if anyone have any questions before we sign off.
No questions, but I am following, especially on my end, and I can see some of what you are referring to in action as it relates to the users not having the ability to see certain stuff, because in my option it's all of the stuff for the sign-in risk, all of those are grayed out.
Yeah.
I was looking at also the users for the university, and I can see everybody that's there, but then the option, you don't really have the option to delete, but you can add users, but you can't delete users. So I'm seeing how it is being implemented practically, and us users not having certain privileges on a restricted account.
Fantastic. And so I don't know what role you have. Now you can determine what roles you have if you have the ability to get access to the portal. When you click on your role, you see in this particular tenant, I have security reader and I have 3 other roles. So when I click there, it shows me what roles I have assigned to me in this tenant. So I'm a security reader, a global reader, a security operator here. So I don't have a lot of, capability here to do a lot of things here. You see, I can't add an assignment because I don't have the permissions to do that. That's why it's grayed out, as what you mentioned there. But I can read everything, but I can't make changes there. And so those are just some of the roles. There might be times where you don't want your students or your faculty to even see certain things. Well, you can do that also. You do that with role-based access control too. If I only want you to manage virtual machines, in addition to assigning these are what we would call tenant roles here. We also have what we call role-based access control, where I can assign you specific roles to specific resources there, such as a virtual machine as well. Okay? Now, what I want to leave you all with here, I'm going to put in my contact information here. Okay? I'm going to put in my LinkedIn as well as my Microsoft account here. Okay, so this is my LinkedIn account in Microsoft here. Now, I would recommend that you try to reach me first via LinkedIn because I'm teaching during the day, and I might not be able to get back with you, but I do look at my social media, from time to time. If you have questions about any of this information, okay, I know this is like an hour session, so we only touched the surface, okay. How many of y'all are going to take the AZ 500 certification exam? Give me a show of hands if you plan on taking that certification. And it's okay if you're not. How many of y'all want to get into cybersecurity? Give me a show of hands if you're interested in getting into cybersecurity. Okay, preparing for a different. Okay, I get it, Nicholas. Which one are you preparing for, Nicholas?
It's actually not Azure, but GCP.
Okay, well, good luck to you. Yeah,
Thanks.
but listen, if y'all have questions about this information, you reach out. Okay, you have our information. Curry and I have provided information for you. Stay in touch. Okay, we're here to support you. We're here to make sure you get what you need. Listen, if you don't want to get certified on this topic, it's okay. But maybe maybe you need help on whatever career path you want to partake in. We can help you with that. Okay, just simply reach out. Just let me know. You're part of the Project Blue Mountain program of there when you connect with me on LinkedIn, and then we can just start communicating there. Okay. Yeah, we're gonna have other sessions there. These are kind of like 1 hour sessions during our lunch time. But yes, we're gonna have, and you can actually, I don't have them listed here in front of me here, but if you reach out to your point of contact, the person that's your point of contact for your Project Blue Mountain, they can give you those details there. Okay. But we'll be hosting these for I think the next 2 months here. We're going to do security. We're going to be doing Copilot. We're going to be doing architecting, storage. So we're going to be giving you different topics over the next 2 to 3 months. Okay. And we probably lost a lot of people because we had some we was on a different channel, a Teams call, because normally we have close to 100 or so here, but I want to thank the ones of y'all who attended, and we're recording it also, so you have the ability to go back and look at the recording also as well. And if you have questions, feel free to reach out. Okay, Courtney, anything you would like to add before we sign off?
This is my first time joining the Project Blue Mountain training, and I think it's well. Look forward to joining more after this.
Fantastic.
And again, I shared my LinkedIn information there, so you can feel free to reach out, ask questions, anything pertaining Microsoft or just anything about life. I'm free and open.
Yeah.
All right. Have a good one.
Yeah. Yeah, and I agree with Courtney, and thank you, Courtney. It doesn't have to just be Microsoft. If you just maybe you're not sure where you want to go next in your career, maybe we can help you with that. Okay.
Yeah,
So
there are 2 questions in the chat. I'm not sure if you guys can see it.
yeah,
The access of the recording.
yeah. Will there be another onboarding session? Yes, we're going to have plenty over the next 3 months. We're going to have quite a few of those. Reach out to your representative for your Project Blue Mountain, and they will give you the schedule so that you can attend these sessions, or you can look at the recordings there. Okay. I will have to find out how you can access the recording. I'll reach out to Andreski and I'll post it back in this channel. So you can come back to the channel here and I will give you those details there. Okay. Now, technically, unless they move the video to a different location, the recording to a different location, you should be able to, when we end this meeting, you have access to the recording, unless they move it to a different location. That's what I want to find out. Okay. All right. Any final questions before we sign off? I want to thank you all, first of all, for participating. And remember, we're going to have more of these. You have our contact information also. Feel free to reach out. And I wish you all the best of luck on your career path. Okay. Okay. Unless
Thank you.
any final questions, if not, I want you to enjoy the rest of your time. And let's talk again soon. Okay.
Thank you. Goodbye. Same to you.
You're welcome. Thank you so much.